you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a speaker, or a coach, and although you've come a long way, it's time for you to take it to the next level. We've got you. This is the Author to Authority podcast. We'll help you use authority and influencer marketing to build your business stronger and faster by publishing a book. You'll hear from guests that are thought leaders in sales, marketing, networking, communication, social media, promotion, and business leadership. Let's do it. This is the Author to Authority podcast. And now your host, the extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson-Pinder.
Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today I'm excited because we're going to cover a topic we haven't talked about much on the show, and that is escaping the trap of average. One thing I have learned is that if you want to build your business better, bigger, stronger, and faster, average is not the word that you want to use. You want to stand out. You want to be unique. You want to have people see you as that expert that you are. You know, especially if you're some consultant, professional speaker, coach, that's mostly what our audience is. You need to stand out. And so I'm excited for today's topic. I'd love to welcome Dan to the store. Okay, it's one of those days already. I want to welcome Dan to the show. He's an author, trainer, and motivational speaker who has spent years studying the principles of personal motivation and behavioral psychology to answer two simple questions: why we do what we do, and can we influence this? Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kim. It's great to be here. And yeah, I've had some coffee, plenty, so I'm probably going to get my words a little tangled as well. But it's the start of a good day, right? So our brains are working faster than our mouths, maybe. We'll call it that.
That happens a lot some days. Dan, I just want to start off with just the really obvious question. And even though it's obvious, I think sometimes we don't think how impactful it is. And the question is basically this: what happens to you when you stay average?
It's tricky because nothing actually happens. This is the problem, right? Nothing bad happens. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you in the developed world, you got a decent job, you got a little bit of free time to listen to something like this and engage in it. You've already got a job, you're paying the bills. So if you carry on doing that, nothing bad is actually going to happen. But and so when we look at kind of average, we always think, successful people, they either come from like zero to hero or like rags to riches. And we hear those stories and we think, yeah, of course, those guys are going to make it. They've got nothing to lose. They can only go up. And so when we're stuck in what I call this trap of average, is we've kind of made it to an extent. We've made it out of that problem situation. Maybe we've exceeded the expectations of our parents or our family or our social circle or something like that. And we get to this point. But if you ever ask people in that situation where they're average, like, are you truly happy? They don't give you an amazing answer, right? And I like what you said at the beginning. It's like, welcome to the story. In the book, I talk about the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is modeled by Joseph Campbell. And my camera's going to go, so I'm going to turn this off. Just give me a moment. And let's get rid of this one. Hopefully you can hear me. There we go. It's too warm for my camera. That's a good problem. So the hero's journey is this idea that we're the lead, right? And we should be the lead of our story. We shouldn't be going around playing average. Like if we are the star of the show, then we need to do things that excel. But because we've removed that pressure to really drive and work hard, we kind of get to this point where we're comfortable, we're satisfied, but oftentimes we don't quite get to happy or fully engaged with our life. So it's that kind of 7 out of 10, like, where it doesn't say it's good, it doesn't say it's bad. Like nothing bad's going to happen. But the reality is, and again, if you've got coaches and consultants and stuff, you know that you've got more potential. And my thought in life is let's figure out what that potential is for. Let's maximize not maximize the results we get, but maximize the exploration of it. So nothing bad will happen if you don't get out of average. If you're in average, that's a good place. But what if we could? What if we could challenge ourselves to extend ourselves a little bit further?
Love it, Dan. The thing is that you do get comfortable, but like you said, you're not satisfied. And,
Right.
One thing I've learned from being an entrepreneur for well, let's just say many years now, is that you can only, that entrepreneurial itch is going to get you sooner or later.
Yep.
And the way I look at it is like, just don't, just start scratching that itch. Cause like you can stay average or you can be so much more. You talked about the word potential.
Yep.
And I think, sometimes we don't want to realize our potential because we know it's not always going to be easy.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. It's not always hard either, but to become who you fully are meant to be is a journey that's going to require you to go to places most times you don't want to go. And I'm not talking physically travel, but in here and in here, you're going to have to challenge yourself. You're going to have to work hard. There's a C word. There is a really bad C word.
There's a lot of bad C words. You might have to clarify.
It's called consistency.
Oh, no, that one. Yeah, we don't like that one.
The thing about consistency is everyone thinks consistency is average. And it's not. Consistency is a secret superpower. Okay. Because I always explain it this way. Consistency and momentum are best friends. Momentum's very hard to get to.
Yeah.
It requires a lot. But you see, here's the thing. If you want to meet momentum, become best friends with consistency.
Yeah. I use the word discipline. For me, it's discipline. So, I have a couple of backgrounds. Like my corporate background, I teach salespeople and leadership teams on how to be slightly more effective in our communication patterns and try and influence people to get people to do stuff. Outside of that, I'm a bodybuilder. And so my relationship with bodybuilding teaches me, and you talked about psychology, it's that psychology, it's the showing up. So if you set a goal, and this is kind of what the trap of average says, it says, okay, well, if you set a goal, let's say we're stuck in average, but we realize that there is more potential. And I like the word you said, itch, right? Because it is an itch. And I used to teach people in Florida, and I tell them the story, and they said, what are you doing, Dad? So the idea is if you're walking along the beach wearing shoes and you get some sand in your shoes, what do you do? And again, the people in Florida say, why are you wearing shoes? Like just wear sandals or flip-flops or whatever, right? But I'm English, so of course I'm going to be wearing shoes, right? But most people would say you take the shoes off, right? Empty the shoe, empty the sand, and then carry on walking. But what people are really good at doing is crinkling the toes and dispersing that sand so it doesn't itch. You can pack a lot of sand into shoes in between your toes. You'd be surprised. But that's what people do, right? They get that itch, that entrepreneurial itch or something, and they're like, let me just hide it in between my toes. They find a way to alleviate that pressure. I don't know, like just they give themselves a free pass, or they take the pressure off. We're really good at that. We'll compare ourselves to, but at least we're doing better than Bob, or we're not as bad as that person down the road. We just take the pressure off, right? Because, and again, we're comfortable. We're not happy, but we're comfortable. And so I think we've got to understand that. The problem is, as soon as you set that goal and say, right, I'm going to go for it, Kim, you've inspired me. I kind of realize there's an itch. I'm going to do it. You have this realization immediately that I'm not that person. And we have this identity gap. And that's the challenge, right? Anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur and they go from an employer or employee to entrepreneur, they like suddenly have to think entirely different. And it's freaky. It freaks you out. So you've got to figure out a path, and you've got to show up every day. And that's kind of the thing from bodybuilding that has been my thing. I know I want to get here. This is the goal. I know this is the path. I know it's going to take me, and next week I start another 12-week plan. I know it's 12 weeks. I know I've got to do stuff every single day, and I know I've got to show up every day. Do I want to do it? No. Do I feel like I'm going to? Don't always feel like it. But like you said, it's consistency. For me, it's discipline. It's showing up. It's doing the work every day, knowing that at the end of it, it's going to be worth it.
Well, you were talking about that, and I'll probably get some of the details wrong, okay? So, because it's been a long time since I've heard this. But I heard a story once, and basically the gentleman was talking to an audience, and he said, which one would you prefer? $1 million, or I think it was something like 1 cent a day compounded.
Okay. Yeah, for a month, so, right? Or you double it 1 cent a day, but it doubles every month or something along those lines. Yeah,
or like it doubles. So the first day you put 1 cent, the next day you would put 2 cents, then 4 cents. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I knew it was somewhere in there. And most people said, oh, they want the $1 million. And then he showed them the math. And if you did the doubling, It actually came out to some ridiculous number that was way more than $1 million. And that's what I see what you're talking about is it's that compound effect. So it's not the first time that you do it that you see the results. But when, you've done it day in, day out, you've done the things that you've needed to do, it's like they just start slowly piling on top of each other, right? Until you hit that point where it takes on a life of its own.
Right.
And that's what happens a lot of times in business when you're willing to pay that price and not be average. The difference between, consultants, professionals, speakers, and coaches, who are making, let's say, tens of thousands, to then hundreds of thousands, then to millions, is the small details. It's the consistency of, connecting with podcasts to do podcast interviews.
Yep.
That is not exciting. Sending out, doing the research, sending out an email, or using things like Podmatch, which you and I use. It is not exciting to have to get on there every single day and try to connect with people, right?
Yep.
If you're a speaker, building your network, asking for referrals, finding out about conferences, sending out all your stuff, sending your book to them, right? In the hopes. But when you start doing that enough, that's the difference between average and just skyrocketing your results.
Yeah. Well, I teach salespeople, right? And the biggest thing for them is building a pipeline. And, so the story I normally tell. So years ago, I was European sales trainer for this very big advertising firm. Let's call it that. And we were teaching people how to go onto Google advertising. This is like a long time ago. Google was just coming up. And we had this thing. Do you remember the yellow pages? You remember like the yellow page of the book? You find like all the people, the good old days. And we were teaching businesses how to go online. And I remember waking up one day and had to go to a hotel for work. And I walked in, they said, "Hello, Mr. Storey, how are you?" And I hadn't checked in. So you always know it's a bad situation when the hotel knows you by name and you haven't checked in. And I said to my boss, "Look, I need to quit. I need to quit my job and let me just become a salesperson." And we were hiring people with loads of experience. And I had experience selling, but I hadn't had recent experience. I hadn't had the client type. So I went in cold, completely cold. And in my first month, I literally just hit the phones. I was doing what I'd been teaching people to do, making cold calls, prospecting, doing that whole thing. And I went really hard. Like I was focused. I was in the zone. A lot of coffee. We have free Red Bull at the time. I remember that, taking advantage. But in my first month, I did nothing. Literally no sales. I had calls, I had meetings, and I'd be sitting next to somebody who'd been doing this for a little while, and they'd just pick up the phone, book a meeting, go and sell the meeting next day, and they'd already done a deal. And I'm looking at them like, how you do that? I'm hitting phones like 150 times a day. Like what? First month, nothing. And then second month, I remember week one, I did my first deal. It was a hotel in Oxford, and we signed them for this advertising deal. And then I did another one the next week and another one. I did 5 deals in 5 weeks. I was a top salesperson in month 2. I'm not saying that because it's cool, but that's what happens is not just that initial upfront work, like it will build, but also then 6 months later, you'll get people coming back from that say, "Hey, I wasn't ready at that time you spoke to me last time, but can we have a conversation now?" And if we bring back the consistency, so Kim, here's the fun consistency thing, right? So month 1, 0 sales. Month 2, top salesperson, 5 deals, 5 weeks, right? Month 3, how many sales did I do? 0, because in month 2, I was closing all deals, I didn't do any prospecting. So that's why we need to be consistent. Otherwise, we're going to ride that wave. So, plan all the things, show up every day, do a little bit. But I think that's the consistency, and that's the work rate as well. And, we'll get on to talking about the book, but like, the psychological changes you've got to go through. So first one is getting out of this trap of average. You've got to raise your expectation and try and challenge yourself to explore your potential a little bit more. Second bit is this realization that as soon as you try that, there's going to be a gap between who you are right now today and who you want to be. Like there's an ambition, but there's also an identity gap, and we act in accordance with our identity. So we've been hardwired over the years to do the things that we're really good at. So the second we try and change, our brain is going to go, nope. And it's going to try and enforce all of the behaviors that we've done up until then. So it's really difficult to escape that, right? So not only do we set a goal, we've got to get outside that, then we've got to show up every day in a way that we don't feel like it. That's where the discipline, the commitment to show up comes in. But then we've got to really work hard. And I think that the thing is with work is we can hustle, we can grind, we can do all those things, and we should put in the extra time if we want to grow something of value. But the thing for me, it's about sacrifice. It's about choosing what to say yes to and what to say no to. And I think it's Steve Jobs that says the only way we get to do the work we really want to do is by saying no to a load of other stuff that we don't want to do. And so for context, my family right now are having dinner with some friends that are over from the States, right? I just went for ice cream, right? So I'm not completely missing out. But they're off doing that. I'm here because, I know that my business is important. So it's the sacrifices, saying yes to some things and saying no to something. It's just a now. Like I often, when I talk about sacrifice, people think goats and virgins. It's like, oh my God, like, we're not throwing anything into a volcano right now. We've evolved slightly. But I see it as a strategic move in chess. I don't play chess, but when you sacrifice a pawn on a chessboard, you do it for a reason. And you know that reason is because later on down the line, you're going to get something greater in return. And so this is what we've got to figure out, is if we are going to challenge ourselves, we're going to work a bit harder. Don't just go crazy. Like, just choose, how do I trim stuff down? How do I eliminate things from my life so I can focus on the things that are more important? And family is important, I'm not going to lie. Like, we're going to go and have a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun yesterday. We explored some castles. But today I'm like, you know what? I need a little bit of time for my business. So we're going to come and do this.
You say the word sacrifice, and of course we're all like, especially coming out of COVID. And I think COVID taught me something, and I think it taught a lot of people something, but I think people have rebelled against it since then.
Yeah.
But, what it taught me was the things I could do without.
Yeah.
Do I really need that? Now, for some people, that caused a lot of mental anguish and stress, and and I can't say that I successfully came through COVID without days of wanting to scream, hit and kick the wall and just rebel and do what I want just because I want to do it. But I realized that there was a lot of things that I could do without, and I don't always need these things. And I think, when you apply that to business, what are the things you really don't need? What are the things that you're doing? There are things that you're doing that you're not good at, and you're doing them because you have to, and your brain's fighting you because it doesn't want to do it, but you're doing it because you have to. But with that mindset is, okay, what things can I pass on to somebody else?
Yep.
Because something I've learned is there are people who love doing the thing you hate to do. Okay. Now, my office, you'd never know it from my office, but I'm actually a pretty organized person. Okay, my office is my one space that I kind of let go because it actually helps my creativity as a writer. Yeah. But, in my business, I'm organized. I have systems. I have ways of doing things. It's kind of confusing because I've got these two sides of me. I've got this very organized side and I've got this very creative side, and some days they fight. But I realized that while I'm very good at organization, it's not my happy place.
Yep.
But I do it because it needs to be done. Okay. But I realized a long time ago in the publishing business that tracking everybody's projects, making sure that, this got to this person and this went there, and it just bored me to tears. So one of the best things I did is I brought on a book project manager, someone who loves to be organized. It drives them nuts when things are not organized. And it's been one of the best things because while I'm good at it, I hate it.
Yep, exactly. And it takes your energy away. It takes your energy away from the other stuff. Yeah, 100%. I talk about this a lot. Like, so there's a couple of things in here. So number one is, work hard, but then work smarter, right? Don't just keep doing all the stuff. There's no way you can. I remember a coach of mine he said this. I still remember the moment. He said, alone we go fast, together we go far. And I've always remembered that. It's like an African proverb. Like, you got to have a team. Got to have a team. And if I go far enough back, my sport, actually, I played American football at a fairly decent level in Europe. And if you think about the quarterback, let's take Tom Brady, for example, when he was playing, how many coaches and support staff did that just one individual have, right? And that's what you got to think to be world class, is you've got to have a team around you. You can't do everything. But then second time, if you're going to delegate something, you got to know how to do it better than the person who does it. So, or at least you're going to know how to manage it and not just give it to them. You got to know how you want it done. And actually, we'll talk about my book process. I had an outsource agency that I was working with, and I ended up taking the book back off them because they weren't doing it to the standard that I wanted it to. And this is from my second book. I knew what was going on, so I was better informed. I was better informed. So I was like, nope, that's not acceptable. They were trying to tell me this is good. I'm like, no, that's not good. Let me show you what good is. 5 minutes, bam, there. So I definitely think you have to delegate, but you got to write systems. And there's a lot of people that talk about this. There's the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, which is probably the best book on this subject, is extricating yourself, pulling yourself out of your business and creating a system. I think Tim Ferriss talks a lot about it in kind of 4-hour work week and things like that. Is know what the process is, create the system, create the manual, give that to someone, outsource it, and then just manage.
And that's what I do. Like, I learned how to do everything in my business. In fact, I can do everything in my business. Now, I can't do everything well, but I can do it.
Yeah.
But when I bring on somebody new, here's what I do. I usually try to find someone who's better at it than I am.
Yeah.
But I teach them my system first. And then I look at them and I say, you're probably going to figure out 50 million different ways to do this bigger, better, stronger, and faster than I can.
Yep.
So here's the deal. I don't care how you do it, as long as it's morally, ethically, and legally okay.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I taught you my way to do it. Now go restructure it. The only thing is you have to be able to document it, because there may come a day when you're not here and I've got to be able to show the next person how to do it.
This is one of my favorite quotes. I think, and I can never remember who it is, but I'm pretty sure it's Eisenhower. He says, don't tell people how to do stuff. Tell them what to do and let them surprise you with their creativity, or something along those lines. I've managed teams, right? And I've got a very clear way of doing things. I like to do things. I'm very controlling. It doesn't get you anywhere. So you got to let go. And people go to places different ways. And as a leader of any kind of people, you've got to be accepting that people are going to find their own way. But as long as they get to the place you want to get to, so paint the box, I think you're doing a perfect job. And then let them get creative. And if you can choose better people, then let them drive.
Dan, we're going to switch gears here because you
Awesome.
are an author of a book. So tell us the name of the book, tell us a little bit about the book, and then I'm going to ask you the question that I ask every single author that comes on the show.
All right, cool. So the book is this one. It's The Personal Transformation Blueprint. As I mentioned, I'm a bodybuilder, and I only started this recently, actually after COVID. Before COVID, I was an American football player. I was very happy playing with my buddies on the weekend. And then COVID came, had a daughter, and life changed. And I was like, okay, well, I still have this competitive aspect, but the gyms were closed. There was nothing I could do. Couldn't play football. And it got to a point where I got, actually I saw a photo. It was a photo of me on a beach. And I was like, that's not me. Like, it was, but it was a picture of a guy who wasn't living up to everything that he talked about. And that was me realizing that I was stuck in this average place. And so I kind of kicked my butt and said, look, you got to go and do something. So I chose this bodybuilding journey. And again, like I said, step 1, raise your expectations. Step 2 is immediately the brain kicks in and goes, nope. So I had this massive imposter syndrome. It's like, you're not a bodybuilder. And I would go to conferences and I say, hey, my name is Dan Storey, I train salespeople, et cetera, and I'm a bodybuilder. And I hadn't been a bodybuilder. I was training to be a bodybuilder, but I hadn't competed. And my brain was going, what's going on? So I realized there's this massive hurdle that you've got to overcome. And anybody that sets a big goal is you've got to rewire your mindset. And, like you said at the beginning, I've been studying this psychology thing for a little while. And so it's fun, actually. The journey was about how do I apply all these ideas in the context of bodybuilding? And so it had the mindset thing. And I can remember various points during the journey going, oh my God, like having realizations. And then the third part is about, and you mentioned it, is our relationship with work and the ability to raise the energy that we've got for a project. So it's these 3 stages of expectation transformation, mindset transformation, and work rate transformation that anybody has to go through if they're going to set themselves a big goal. And so it's kind of framed around that. It's this idea that we should set big challenges for ourselves, but what's the mental journey that we have to go through if we're going to create this change, but also keep it sustainable and long lasting as well. So it was fun. It's kind of documented my process and like kind of mental state, all the ups and downs from my journey as a bodybuilder. And since I kind of launched it, I've been teaching that framework to other people and helping them either change jobs or get out of roles or get out of relationships, change relationships, all those kind of things. So yeah, it's been a fun process, but also, having written a book, you'll know this is not fun, but it's worthwhile.
So you had mentioned you had written a sales book many years ago. So we'll just talk about this current book.
Cool.
So what was the good, the bad, and the ugly about writing, editing, and publishing the second book for you?
So the good is that once you've done one, the second one is always easier. So the good was I could be a lot more open in my voice. The first one I wrote was like I was trying to write a book, and now this one, after years of practicing writing, I was writing with my voice. So I think if you're listening and you're thinking about writing a book, or you're getting into that, be comfortable in who you are. Because, and I saw this quote the other day, there's no unique message, only a unique messenger. And I think the more unique and authentic we can be in the way we say things, the more it'll connect. Not everyone's our audience, but we got to say the things that we want to say in the way we want to say them, and it'll connect with the people who need to hear it. So I think that was the best thing is I could put all of my energy and weird sense of humor into my writing, and it just felt really good to write.
Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned that you were having issues with the publisher. So talk about that a little bit, because sometimes there's this dichotomy today between, going with traditional publisher, going with a hybrid publisher, completely self-publishing.
Yep.
And, there's benefits and not good benefits to both. But talk a little bit more about that experience.
Cool. So I'm self-publishing, and that's a route I want to take. I knew this book was for me and clients that I work with and stuff like that. So I didn't even bother approaching a publisher. At the time, I had a job. I was global head of training for a well-known technology firm. And I thought, I know how to do this. I know how to typeset. I know how to do all these things. But let's take my advice from the book. Authors always take your advice, like if you can. I know it's hard, but we got to do it. And I was like, right, how do I outsource? How can I give this to someone to free up some space? I can focus on other stuff. So I found it's like an online publishing house. I said, look, I need some help, typeset, design, do all this kind of stuff. They're like, yeah, we can take this on. And we'll do the audiobook and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, great. I sent them a document, manuscript. They sent something back, and it just didn't look right. I'm like, you guys have done this before, right? And, you pay cheap, you pay twice. But I thought because I had the experience, I could manage it a lot more. And I thought I didn't need as much input. The manuscript was pretty much done. So I sent it over, but it just came back wrong so many times. And literally it took 6 weeks to get a design of the cover for the cover that I'd already designed. And that should have given me a clue. But, I was trying to do what I said. And I said, come on, let's try and work with them, give the benefit of the doubt. The typeset came back and it was just terrible. And look, guys, I think it's probably best that we part ways. I think here's the reason that's bad is not because the end product is bad. I'm quite lucky I managed to fix it, save it all myself, like I said, do it myself. I think what was bad about that is not the outcome. It's just if somebody else had been in that situation and they'd accepted what had been told, I think that would have been a worse outcome for them. So I'm proud that I tried to do it. It delayed the release of the book by a decent amount, but I'm just glad that we kind of got to the end result. I think what did allow me to do is actually allowed me to get a lot more people proofreading and editing it and stuff. So it gave me a little bit more time. And there's never enough editing, I think.
That's true and not true at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you can get into paralysis analysis where you actually never release the book because you're constantly editing it.
Yeah.
But, one of the things I teach as a publisher is to always check out the publisher first. So check out samples of things that they did, because, you want to be able to see what types of things they do and whether you like it or not. So, like if you're checking out this publisher and the books they've done and you're like, well, I don't like this typeface. I don't like these covers that I'm seeing. You're finding, okay, no book's ever perfect. There's always going to be few mistakes, like a few little mistakes. Okay, never perfect. Excellent, but not perfect. But, if you're finding a lot of mistakes, these are things that you need to talk about and you need to ask questions. So some of the questions that, I teach my clients to ask, even ask of me, is, like, what are the policies if you're not happy? Like, how do you resolve problems? So, at RTI Publishing, we try to put systems in place. So one of the things that we did is we created a design book for our clients. And so they got to pick what they wanted for their book. So they already got to see what it was going to look like because they were the ones that were picking it out. We weren't saying this is what it's going to look like. We gave them choices that said, okay, here are the choices that we are really good at. If you want something outside of this, we can't guarantee that it's going to look good because we've never used this before. But if you stay within, and you got lots of choices, then, we can give you a book that looks good. But I think you have to have those conversations and not just go online and pick somebody because, like you said, it delayed your project and ultimately you ended up doing it yourself. Now, you had learned how to do it. And actually, it's not that hard.
No.
But it is eye-straining, meticulous work.
Yep.
And every time I have to do formatting, I'm excellent at it. I'm really good at it.
But
I'm exhausted by the time I'm done because my eyes hurt.
It's just a brain switch, right? And you just stare and you're like, italic, line drop.
And the thing is, you move one thing, you change one thing, and it just has ripples, at least throughout that chapter, and maybe onto other chapters, and you're just like,
I'm having flashbacks. So no, it was a good lesson. I would say be picky. I did do some research. I did do quite a bit of research, but on this occasion it didn't work out. And maybe they prefer people to say, look, take it and just do it. Maybe I got too hands-on. You live and learn, right?
It's your book.
Yeah, exactly.
And ultimately you have to be able to own that book.
Yeah, for sure.
Dan, we are out of time, my friend. So you have time for one final thought. And if you have something you'd like to direct the audience to, now's the time.
Cool. So I think let's go back to the start of the conversation. And Kim, your question was, what happens if people don't escape the trap of average? And the answer is absolutely nothing. But I think the call to action for this is really, but what if we didn't? What if we did look at our life and we asked the question, is this all there is? And I think the thing for me, and like you said in the bio, is my research is about decision making, and the biggest bias that we have from a decision making perspective, whether that's life choices or sales or anything, is status quo. And we do things because we did it yesterday and we'll do it again tomorrow. Not because it's the right choice, but because that's how we've done it. And I think if you put those two concepts together, that we're average and we're still doing the same thing all the time. And if you just ask yourself your question, okay, well, if we could do more, and we could explore those things that we really want to explore, and we weren't afraid and we didn't doubt ourselves, we couldn't doubt ourselves. But if we were prepared to put in the work and show up and be committed and consistent and have the discipline to do those things, what could we do? And I think if we just ask that question, then that's going to get us going, right? That's going to get that itch going in a way that is super positive. So listen to that itch. If it's an itch, if it's a little voice going, hey, yeah, Kim, how about do we do this? So I would say just listen. And if that itch kicks in or the little voice kicks in, then go and check out the book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon, Joys of Self-Publishing. And it's Personal Transformation Blueprint by Dan Storey. And it's got a lovely picture of a goldfish jumping from a little pond to a big pond as a little symbol of challenging yourself to go a little bit bigger.
Love it, Dan. Love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a joy and a pleasure to interview you.
It's been a whole lot of fun. And thanks for the questions around the book publishing. I will know for the next one.
Audience, where do you go next? Well, if you're on YouTube, I'm going to direct you to episode 509, How to Get Publicity as an Entrepreneur with Jill Lublin. She's very specific how you pronounce her name. And the routine, my daughter has placed a thumbnail here on the screen for you to click. If you are on your podcast app, I've made it easy for you this time. The last time you were going back a couple of hundred episodes. Today, it's only 8 episodes that you have to scan back to get back to that episode. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you on the very next one. Have a great day, everyone. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Author to Authority podcast. The extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson Pinder, has helped over 200 entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches write and publish their books that have become incredible marketing tools for their business. And many of those have gone on to become Amazon best-selling authors and have used their books to land high-level clients and get on big stages. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.authortoauthoritypodcast.com. See you next time.